Hey everybody, Psychosaurus is here. Welcome back to AoE Online. And today, yay, we're gonna finish those damn units videos. Goddamn. And this one is probably gonna be the longest one. Ugh. After the previous one, oh my god, I just hope. I'll try to make it short, but as you can see on the minimap, there's a lot of stuff. But anyway, I forgot one thing in my previous video about the scouts, so yeah, you should check that out. Scouts and Huntables. I forgot to mention one more unit that behaves as a scout, and that's the Tivala from the Pataliputra quest line. Not the Kalinga legendary quest pack, but the the other quest pack. There's the Juggernaut like hero unit called Tivala. That one also behaves like a scout, just like Vemunder and Biorix. I just want to mention him as well. So there's that. But yeah, today we are gonna talk about, as you can see, buildings. And there's a lot of buildings, and goddamn, I was thinking how to would I put them together, and as you can see, there's a lot of them around. Just look at that. And yeah, it also, as you can see, started a little bit glitching. And yeah, if you see something like that, the structures flickering, the shadows flickering, yeah, there's a lot of buildings, okay, and from too many civs, so that's probably why it's gonna happen. But anyway, buildings, how should we describe them? Buildings are very important thing. They are not your typical unit, because buildings you are not training them, you are actually constructing them with many units. As you can see, there are many different. So the most important one are the villagers. Every civ gets one villager for themselves, which are very important. Already was talking about them, so yeah, make sure to check out the villager video. But yeah, you use mainly villagers to construct the buildings. Now obviously there are some other units for some specific civs, or some units that can build very specific structures. For example, Romans get engineer that can build everything, the exception being the farms. They do not construct farms, instead they build milariums. We'll get to those. The Indian elephant gatherer, while it is not able to build your buildings usually, they can still build plantations for the Indians. Then you have the scouts, which can build all the watch posts, or in case of Norse, the outpost. And the Norse melee scout, which is more like the Norse infantry, but also, well, not really. Okay, sorry, my mistake. But yeah, the Norse melee scout is slightly different. It does not build the watch post nor outpost. It builds barracks. That's one difference. And then the Norse infantry can build most of the military production buildings and all the defensive structures as well. So you can build like barracks, stables, archer ranges, the outposts as well, fortresses, towers, and also walls. You cannot build stuff like docks and the other, well, not non-military buildings. And then yeah, there are specific villagers which you can find during the palace races in the alliance cities. So you have like the Delian, the Farafara Oasis, and the Kartak villager. And then also there might be some very specific units that could also build structures. The only one I could think of right now was Archimedes, that you can get during certain quests. Again, very specifically during the palace races, you will most likely use him to build some extra buildings, for example, towers. I think he can build something like temple as well. I don't remember what exactly he can build, but he can build a few structures. And then there could be also like some very specific units. I don't remember though. I think in Well of Earth, you know, the gathering quest where you need to cut down the trees and gather stone. I think there is the one guy that can actually build like some form of stables for the wolves, where you can train wolves and deal with the enemy units. But yeah, that's very niche. Anyway, buildings. So like I said, they are not typical. You build them with these units, and the thing is, they actually are stationary. You cannot move buildings. That's the thing. You place them, you build them, they stay in that location. You cannot move them. That's that thing. Typically, buildings have good HP, and most importantly, very high pierce armor at 0.80. That's very important to mention. That means they can take a lot of damage from enemy ranged units, enemy static defenses, arrow ships, and so on, so on. So yeah, they are very resilient to those, which means, hey, if you want to counter ranged units a little bit or delay them, yeah, buildings are great for soaking damage from those ranged units. And yeah, we have many buildings, so let's get into them. Starting with the one and most important building in the whole quest you will need, Town Center. Now, as you can see, every Civ gets one Town Center, and I just want to say, you can see one of the 4 variants during the quest at a time, because it depends on what age you're currently in. And so what you see here are actually H1 town centers, but obviously as you age up, those town centers will change their visuals, but they will still basically the main how should I say it? Like the main structure still looks the same. It's just more, could be larger, could be more majestic, or something like that. That's how I want to describe it. But basically, how do you recognize TC? First of all, there is like the one main structure at the top corner. Then there is like some square or whatever in front of it, like at the bottom corner. And then there are some surroundings, like in this case, like these bushes. Here it could be like, yeah, whatever. There are like some side structures. Here you can see like whatever this is, like hay, and so on and so on. So usually, yeah, the main structure at the top, and then something at the bottom, and some side stuff on the sides. That's how I describe the TCs. The main thing about the TCs is they produce villagers. That's the most important thing. And usually you also use them to age up. Few exceptions, but yeah, usually you research the age up text at the TCs. And yeah, the other usage for it, there are also some other upgrades that should help your villagers and your buildings to see further away. That's also important, and they also serve as a static defense. So if you want to defend early, TCs can help you with that, with some extra pierce damage from them. It's not the highest, but as you age up, the TCs will grow stronger with more health, more damage. But yeah, overall, it would be preferable to use towers in the later stages of the quest. Anyway, TCs, if we just take a look at the stats, they cost 300 wood, 300 stone. That's true for all the TCs. Base health is 5000, and if you go just through all the TCs, it's all the same, okay? PS DPS 20, which is not super high. Of course, if we compare it to, let's say, the tower, yeah, tower is 25, and for a much lower cost. Plus the towers also get the bonuses versus ships, which TCs do not. Yeah, usually you don't want to build TC near water, because that would make them an easy target. But yeah, for early defense, this can be useful. Attack range 32, which is pretty high. So yeah, ranged units, hey, early ranged units will not be too far away, so you can use your TC to focus on the ranged units and just kill them. The pierce armor is there, as I said, 0.80. Line of sight of 34, which is nice. Reveal the surrounding area at the beginning of the quest, and you can see resources, some herdables, and God knows what. So you can just right away start with gathering resources. But since your scout starts near the TC, yeah, the scout can reveal it as well. But as we know, scout has the baseline of sight of 26, which means if you are just fresh level 1 or low level with your current civ, then the TC can reveal the area better early, and once you get the gear for scouts, yeah, scouts are gonna be better. And I don't think there's anything needed to say. Right, yeah, you can also garrison units inside the TC. Now, obviously, it depends what units we're talking about, but usually you can garrison your villagers to protect them. There is no real bonus for garrisoning, like in Age of Empires 2, where you would garrison units and the TC would have like better attack, better offensive potential. That does not work here. You just garrison your units to protect them. And you can garrison the villagers. I think engineers can be garrisoned, and I think I did garrison also the gatherer elephant, which is a nice thing as well. And then also you can garrison units like Priestess of Ra to protect her from the enemy units as well, because yeah, those are expensive and it makes sense. So yeah, you can garrison these kinds of units, and hopefully I did not forget about any, but yeah, those should be like the main units you should garrison to protect them anyway. No one else really needs that much protection. So yeah, I hope that's everything, okay? But remember, if I forget to mention something and you know about it, yeah, just write it down in the comment section, so it's useful information, not only for me to remember the stuff like that, but also for everyone else. Right, there is also one ability that I forgot about, which is the ring town bell. As you can see, oh, engineers cannot? I thought engineers could. Okay, that's my mistake. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so when you click on this or use the hotkey, I think there is a hotkey. Is it G? Oh, no, okay. Forget about it. I cannot tell right now, since we are in the scenario editor. But anyway, this was actually interesting. The gatherer elephant actually... Oh, that's actually interesting. The gatherer elephant can garrison only the Indian town center? Okay, that's a new information. I didn't know about this. That honestly does not make sense. Well, kinda makes and kinda doesn't at the same time, because you can still convert the gatherer elephants, so you should be able to garrison them. Can you garrison them like in the fortress? Oh, same thing. Tower's probably the same thing. That's interesting. Okay, I didn't know about that. Oh, you can garrison the engineer, but it's in the Roman town center. Maybe it's too far away. So I guess it's the same thing. That's interesting. Okay, so that was just sideways. Whatever, but yeah, you have this ability that nearby villagers, I don't know how large the area is, but I think it's pretty huge. And it will tell the villagers to go and garrison nearby structure and hide inside. Now, obviously, TCs are the most obvious ones, but it could be the towers, it could be the fortresses, and maybe some specific structures as well. But yeah, like after seeing this, like you can garrison the villagers. Like you have the Persian, you can garrison the Persian, but not... Okay, that's actually interesting. Maybe it's a bug, maybe it's not. What do I know? But the engineer should be garrisonable, like in every TC. Like I get it. The gatherer elephant is big, so it would make sense. But anyway, yeah. So you have this ability, and then you can click on it again to cancel it and return the workers to work. And if they had no job, they were doing nothing, being standing idle, well, they will just sit near the TC, or I think the rally point is actually working in this matter. Let's just check it, okay? Real quick, if I do this. Yeah, okay, so the garrison works. But yeah, this is actually interesting information for me. I didn't know about it. Anyway, we still have like few more TCs for some specific scenarios. So we have these two, the Nubian town center and the Etruscan town center. The Nubian one is for some reason more powerful in HP. Like, why? I guess it's specific for Nubians, so that's one difference. The Etruscan seems the same. And then we have the Alliance quest. So you can see those, for example, in Palace races. And those basically are the same thing, okay? I don't think there is anything extra. Yeah, just basically the same TCs, just for the specific scenarios. Anyway, one more thing. If you take a look at the minimap, the TC actually has one special icon there, which looks like a house, okay? So when you see a house on the minimap, if you ever look at the minimap, you should watch the minimap. That's very important. You can see that the TC is actually being represented as a house. And I believe that's gonna be everything. Hopefully I did not forget anything now. But yeah, I hope that's everything. Remember, comment section if I did forget something. Moving on. Let's go over here. Houses. Now, houses are also very important buildings, but obviously not as important as the TCs, because you need those villagers to start gathering resources and then build the rest of your base. So houses are important structures because when you build them, they increase your population limit, and obviously there is a limit to the houses as there is a population limit. And also I forgot, the TCs have the population limit, or not population, the number of TCs you can have built at the same time is limited to 4 TCs, okay? 1 for each age. So you need to age up to get access to another TC. That's what I forgot. Houses, you just have the specific limit, the build limit of 24. Each house increases the population limit by 5. So if you want more population, yeah, you need to pay for those houses. So if we take a look, 50 wood for those. So relatively it's much cheaper than the TC. So the TCs also population, yeah, the TCs increase the population limit by 20. That, god damn it, that I know I keep forgetting something. That's important, okay? House increases population by 5 for 50 wood in comparison to 600 resources of the TC. Yes, houses are much better option, but remember, TCs offer extra production line for your villagers. But yeah, houses very cheap, 750 health, 0.80 pierce armor, like every other building. Only 10 line of sight, so terrible line of sight. Basically, you just want to build those houses as soon as possible and for as low cost as possible. So putting like discount gears and faster build times on your houses is obviously a good choice. You could probably build a wall of houses as well, trying to prevent your enemies to reach your units or your base, or just delay them. Although houses are not gonna be the most efficient, but hey, if you play a quest and you cannot build walls, it can be nice usage for the houses. They are cheap to replace, so you can do that. Anyway, every civ gets one house, as you can see. Now you can see like one variant, houses can look slightly different. And basically, if you take a look at the house, it's very simple structure, small building. And yeah, usually, yeah, there is nothing really specific about the house. It's a building, okay? And that's it. It's there. There's that. There are a few specific houses for the Badari, this is the Nubians, and then the Etruscans. As you can see, slightly different stats. So the Badari has less health, only 500, but better line of sight of 20. The Nubian one has more health, actually, 1000 health, and also increased line of sight of 20, which is interesting. Let me just quickly check. Yeah, everyone else is like 10. Oh, gold trickle. that's for the Crassus advisor, I bet. And then the Etruscan, yeah, Etruscan is just a standard house, so there's that. And then there's one special house, which is the Norse house, and it's not called house, it's actually longhouse. There is, I would say, a huge difference about the longhouse from your typical house. First of all, it's larger. As you can see, it's taking more space. So that's one thing. At the same time, it costs 100 wood instead of 50. So again, a little bit more expensive. It has 1000 health, so yeah, the health difference is smaller. Otherwise, 0.80 pierce armor, 10 life sight, so standard house. So what's so different? Why is it like more expensive and larger? The thing is, the longhouse actually increases the population limit by 10, so it's actually double the value. So yeah, the increased cost, the larger size, but you don't need that many longhouses. You actually get only half the amount of longhouses, okay? So you need like 12 instead of 24 houses. So there's that. Overall, if I'm not mistaken, the build time is actually shorter, which depends how you look at it, because hey, if the house takes 15 seconds, you get the 5 population in 15 seconds, while the longhouse takes 20 seconds to build, but you actually get 10 populations. So overall, like, yeah, longhouses you'll build faster and get more population, but hey, there is a slight delay of 5 seconds until you get the population. Okay, so you want to keep that in mind so you don't get supply blocked and get your villager production delayed. So keep that in mind, that you will need more wood, which again can be actually a disadvantage, because now if the house costs 50 wood, you just gather 50 wood and place the house, and you start building the house, and you get it in 15 seconds. Done. But the longhouse, yeah, you have the 50 wood, but now you need to wait until you get another 50 wood. Then you place the longhouse, and then you need 20 seconds to get the longhouse. So it is like nice advantage that you don't need to build that many longhouses, but at the same time there are delays because of the before you get the population, before you gather enough resources. So yeah, there are few things that are playing against you, but in quests, yeah, you will probably not notice it that much. Anyway, another great usage for the longhouse, and that's gonna be the final one, is you can actually garrison villagers inside. I wonder, can you garrison these? No. You can garrison villagers inside, and I believe the limit is like 10 units, if I'm not mistaken. It's not gonna show me, right? Yeah, unfortunately. I don't remember what the limit for TC is. I think it's like 25 villagers, maybe? I don't remember exactly, but some good amount. And the longhouses, if I'm not mistaken, is 10, but yeah, better check it in the unit stats. Don't trust me on this one, because I don't know the limits. Usually I don't use the garrison that often, okay? So there's that. But yeah, that's a nice thing, because hey, if you need, you can garrison your villagers, protect them from the enemy raids. So in case you're playing PvP, you might want to keep a longhouse somewhere near your, let's say, wood line, and then if there is a raiding party, you can just hide them inside the longhouse. So there's that. I don't think there's anything else needed to say. Longhouse is a nice thing, but yeah, always remember to get those houses so you can increase the army size and make sure you have enough units to deal with the enemy. Okay, moving on. Another very important structure. Well, not as important, but it's very useful, and you should build it as much as you can. The storehouse. Now, storehouse is mainly used for resources drop-off, just like the TC. But the TC, obviously, you have limited numbers, and you probably don't want to invest like 600 units to build a TC. And then, like, yeah, okay, you got these resources faster, but then you have like long distance from the other. No, you want to build a storehouse. It's a lot cheaper, a lot smaller, and also you can research your economy upgrades for your gathering speeds for your villagers. And yeah, very useful structure. Remember to rebuild them when you're gathering the wood, so your villagers don't spend too much time traveling between the tree line and the storehouse. Anyway, very cheap. If we take a look, 50 wood, only 500 HP, PS armor is there. Line of sight of 26. So yeah, they can actually reveal the area nicely. If we take a look at the villager, how much do you get? You get only 12. So yeah, they can actually grant the line of sight you need and warn you on the minimap, although it's still a small radius. Hey, it can still help you react to like enemy raids and protect your villagers. So yeah, the line of sight is nice there. Anyway, the build time is 30 seconds, which is quite long. So usually when you put one villager there and then another villager is like produced from your TC, it comes and starts gathering the resources. The storehouse might not be done before the villager is actually at full capacity and wants to drop off the resources, and then it will run, let's say, to your TC. So yeah, sometimes keep in mind you might need to use like 2 villagers to build a storehouse, so your villagers don't run back all the way back home to the town center. So keep that in mind. Anyway, research is the economy buildings. You definitely want to get those. And what else can I say? Every civ gets one, which is actually interesting. Yes, every civ gets one. And how do you recognize them? Basically look at like this, how should I say it? Like a storage where you can see resources like the food. This is gold, right? Maybe you can see like wood or even like a stump with an axe that serves for chopping the wood. There's that. And as I said, every civ gets one, even Babylonians. And this is actually very specific because you cannot build storehouse as Babylonian, but you can find this in some quests. For example, in the what is it called? Is it Jiranga Hills? Yeah, I think it's the Jiranga Hills, you know, in the new quest pack for the Indians in Pataliputra. If you play the Jiranga Hills as Babylonian, there are, you know, in the TC you need to rescue, there are like plantations and there are usually storehouses. Now, obviously, if you would be playing as Babylonian, you would not have a storehouse then. And so there was a storehouse created for them, and in this case, yes, Babylonians have a storehouse there, for example. So yeah, it exists just in case, hey, because Babylonians don't have storehouses, and instead they have ox carts, which I was already talking about in my previous video about the villagers and herdables. So make sure to check that out about the ox carts. Basically, ox cart is a unit. It's not a structure that you train at the TC, and it serves as a mobile storehouse. You can move it actually, and it serves as a mobile drop-off, which is very nice because if it can move, then with the tree line it will move as the trees are getting cut down. And so yeah, you will always keep like the maximum efficiency, so the villagers keep shorter traveling distances, and so they actually keep gathering instead of walking. So ox carts were useful, but also they are more expensive and they take some population from you, so a little bit disadvantage, but hey, it grants huge advantage as it can save you a lot of wood by not needing to build a storehouse. Plus, when you're playing as Babylonian, you start with an ox cart. So yeah, you already have an advantage available to you as Babylonian. And I don't think there is anything else needed to say about the storehouse. So only one more thing. Notice that the Indian one does not have meat. That's like that's the only storehouse that does not have meat. Everyone else has meat somewhere. That's just a detail. Okay, moving on, we have market, and market is again very important for your economy. And I wonder, wait, oh, I have 2 Romans here, hang on, I did not realize that. I'll place a market real fast. I just realized I don't have the Indian one. And I wonder if the Indian, yeah, it seems like the Indian market also does not have meat. Okay. I just wonder because I know about the storehouse and I was wondering like if the market has it, whatever. Anyway, market, very important building for you as it is being used, one, for training caravans that you use to trade with your TC and generate extra gold income, and usually in the quest that will be your main gold income. The other purpose of the market is to trade resources, so you sell food, wood and stone for a gold, or you buy those resources for the gold. Obviously there are also some tags very useful, for example the trading resources tag that improves the values for you, so you sell the resources for more gold or buy them for less. And then there's also tags for tributes, that when you are sending resources or tributing resources to other players or AI in the quest, you actually don't need that many resources to actually tribute those resources. Instead, you'll just use like half or a quarter required of extra resources. So there's that. Markets, very useful. If we take a look, they cost quite a good amount of wood. They are available in H2. The rest of the buildings we just went by were H1, so just remember that. Market is H2 building. And how do you recognize it? As you can see, it looks like, I would describe it as a larger storehouse. So you can see like resources being placed around, and there's that, like, that's probably gonna be the best description I have for it. Anyway, 250 wood, quite expensive, but when you get it, hey, you actually can get some wood back if you just buy it, okay? So if you have like a lot of some resource, like let's say you have too much food, you can actually sell it here and then buy, for example, stone and get armor upgrades. Possibilities exist here. And you should definitely try to learn to use the markets as much as you can. Very useful. Anyway, 2250 HP, so they can take some damage before they get destroyed. But yeah, usually you just place them somewhere and try to protect them so they don't take damage at all. And anyway, yeah, 20 line of sight and the pierce armor is there. There is one nice thing, and you can actually see it here. If you have the market selected, you can actually click this button, which should open the tribute menu. Instead of like clicking on the resources, this is another way to open it. And yeah, I don't think there's anything else needed to say about the market. Just remember, when you're placing the market, you can use the Shift+Z hotkey to actually reveal how much you will get for trading. And I was already talking about it, but yeah, if you want to learn more about the markets, make sure to check out my caravan and markets video that I made some time ago. I dare to say it's very useful for you, so you learn as much as you can about the markets, resource trading and caravans. But other than that, yeah, I don't think there's anything else needed to say about the markets. So let's move on, and I'll just go straight up here to the walls, because I have to admit, I was like, do I place every single wall? And I was like, no, that would just take so much time, because as you can see, there are multiple wall parts, and can you imagine, for each save, and then you have like multiple different factions like the alliance ones, and yeah, you just don't want to do that, okay? Basically, walls are actually like 5 different structures, as you can see. So you have like this, I call it node, but in the scenario it's called connector. So whatever you prefer, it's called the connector. So you have like, you always have like this one, and then you have like the line, the segment like this, and then again the connector, and then another segment, and so on until you end again at the connector. So that's how the walls usually look. Walls have one nice thing, as they usually when you have building, you can rotate it, and typically you have like, what is it, like I don't remember. I think it's like 20 directions or something like that, because you can rotate it like 1, 2, 1, 2, like 5, 5, 5, 5. Yeah, I think it's like 20 directions. I might be wrong. I don't rotate it. The usual players don't rotate the buildings, but yeah, it can happen sometimes during the quest. Walls actually are typically rotated, because when you're placing them, usually you go like here, 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 here. So when you're building them, yeah, placing them there, they will rotate. So that's like the only exception that can like rotate in, I would say, infinite directions. Okay, that's how I would describe it. But yeah, that's the only thing specific on the walls. Anyway, we have, like, as you can see, 5 parts. So the connector, then there's the gate, which as you can see, it's like wall, and then you have like this kind of door, and then again the wall, and then you have the small wall segment, the medium, and then the large one. And only the large one can be converted to the gate for a price of 50 wood. Now, walls usually cost stone, but there is one exception, which is the Babylonians, as they start with clay walls, and walls can be built in H1. In case of Babylonians, you get clay walls. The difference in this case is they cost wood instead of stone. So that's the main difference, which means, hey, you don't need villagers somewhere over there gathering the stone. No, you can just get your villagers, put them on the tree line, and this actually is a good thing, because Babylonians don't need to train another extra ox cart for the stone mining. No, you just focus the villagers on the wood, and yeah, keep the stone mining for later. So there's a good thing. Anyway, the main purpose of the walls is to prevent enemy units entering your base or some areas you don't want them to enter. And so yeah, when you place them, they block the paths. The thing about it is they also block your path, with the only exception being the gate. Now, even though the gate can be open and it looks like, yay, the enemy can walk in, no, the enemy cannot walk in Age of Empires Online. No, only your and allied units can walk through the gates. That's the main thing. Also notice, I don't know why, when I was placing the walls in the scenario, the clay one, the small one, is looking like the palisade, like of this normal wall. Yeah, whatever. Now, as you can see, I placed only 2, but there are like multiple walls. Every civ gets their own specific wall, okay? And then once you upgrade them, usually they look like the palisade, and then after upgrade, they change the visual. And like, yeah, I'm not gonna place like every single wall with like all those different visuals. Like, no, don't expect me to do that. But yeah, just remember, walls are there blocking your path. If you want to get through them, you need to break them. So there's that. And how to destroy the walls and how to use them, obviously, as well. You can check out my wall video. Yeah, I made a video about walls. And I dare to say, you can find that useful as well. Anyway, I don't think there's anything else needed to say about the walls. So let's move on. Armory. Now, armory is, I would say, important building, but it's important in the later stages of the quest, as armories actually have upgrades that improve your military power. Now, all of those upgrades affect all of your military units, so that's your infantry, your cavalry, your ranged, your siege, but also your navy, and maybe some specific units as well. Also priests, I cannot forget about those. Scouts are there as well. Huntables are there if you have the monkeys or the dogs. And yeah, if you have like some heroes, those also get affected. Anyway, armory, as you can see, they look like there's a chimney or some kind of furnace, I should say. So you have like a furnace, there's a smoke coming out. Then you can see some anvil as well, and probably some tools as well. But yeah, most likely you'll recognize it by the furnace. That's the easiest recognition of the armory. Armory costs 200 wood. And I forgot to mention, the walls cost depends on, first of all, which wall part you're building. If you're building the connector, that's the minimum of 3. If you have the small one, that's also 3. The medium one is 6 and the large one is 15. So just to keep the full information. But yeah, armory 200 wood, otherwise same stats as the market, so no need to say anything else. Yeah, always get the armory, and remember to get those armory techs, as they will improve the efficiency of your units. Obviously you don't want to stay behind your enemy. If the enemy is getting the upgrades, yes, you want to get your upgrades as well, because if they get the upgrades, they will hurt you more. And especially it's true in legendary quests, when the enemy has elite units, they hurt even more. You need those armory upgrades. Get them, okay? Anyway, I don't think there's anything else needed to say about the armory. Yeah, about that we can talk some in some other videos for the tags and such. But yeah, anyway, we're gonna skip over here, way over here. Let's go on the watch posts. Now, every civ gets 1 watch post. Now, as you can see, it's like tall structure that's on fire, and no, it's not damaged, it's actually officially on fire. And that's basically what you're gonna see when you see those. Usually they are not that useful early, but if you have like 1 in your base, that's very nice. You should always try to keep 1 up, because the main reason you get those is line of sight. So yes, as I mentioned, scouts can build those, so you build those to keep an area revealed. And usually you build the line of sight gear on these, so you see as far as you can. If we take a look, as you can see, 75 wood cost. So early, yeah, that's some investment, so you don't really want to overspend on these. So try to keep only 1 up and not overspend too much wood on these, as it's not really that necessary. Anyway, 375 HP, so they are somewhat vulnerable to damage. So if the enemy comes, they can quickly destroy those. And then the line of sight is 38, which is the highest we've seen so far. And this is also the main reason why we put the line of sight on them, because the base line of sight of this building is already pretty huge. 38, and can you imagine how much you can get with all the gear? And not to mention, when you get the town center upgrade for extra line of sight, yes, you can get a lot. And that's very important, because in the late game they are cheap, because yeah, 75 wood in the late game, that's nothing. In the early game that's a lot, but late game, yeah, that's not a problem. And you definitely don't want to build the other buildings just to reveal the map, because that would cost you a lot. We'll get to that. But yeah, you build the line of sight, you place it, you reveal the map. That's the base purpose. So there's gonna be all about the watch post. There is one special one, and I was already talking about it in my previous video, the outpost, which is the North specific watch post. Now the first difference is it's slightly larger than the watch post. So that's one thing. It's more expensive. It costs 100 wood. Otherwise, it's the same with the stats. And then there is another role for this building, and that is you can actually train the war dogs. Yes, you can train dogs at the outpost, which can be useful in some scenarios. For example, there might be like some random villager trying to rebuild a base, and yeah, you have nothing but the outpost nearby, and you don't want to move your army there, so yeah, you use it to train some dogs and attack the villager. I was already talking about it, but yeah, you can also use the dogs for as some extra DPS or meat shield if you need to. Yeah, other than that, yeah, I don't think there is much difference. I think they are built slower. I think typically it takes 10 seconds. The outpost takes, I think, 20 if I'm not mistaken, so it takes a little bit longer. And I think that's gonna be it. Yeah, nothing else needed to mention. Hopefully, yeah. Yeah, basically nothing else about the watch post. So let's move on. farms. Now farms are very important for your economy, especially in the late game, once all the food sources around have been depleted. You need some extra source of food, and farms are actually perfect because they serve as a infinite source of food that costs, I would say, quite an amount of wood. Okay, one farm costs 100 wood. It has 375 HP, but luckily that the HP is not the main thing about the farm. But yeah, sometimes the enemy units, especially with splash, can hurt your farm, so careful with that. Line of sight of 12, which, yeah, okay, you don't really build farms for line of sight. And then, as you can see, the infinite food source, yeah. Now, one good thing to mention about the farms, this is actually the only building, I hope the only building, except of the gate, that you can actually walk through. It's not blocking your path, so when you send your villagers, obviously they need to stand on the farms. If you send in your units, they can also walk over the farms. So yes, this is like the one exception where you can actually walk through the buildings. Other than that, there is a limit how many farmers you can have on each farm, which is 1, so 1 farm for 1 farmer. So yeah, as you can tell, 100 wood for each farm. When you need like, let's say 30-40 farmers, yeah, that's gonna cost you a lot. Anyway, I don't think there's anything else needed to say about the farms. Just remember to keep building them so you make sure you have enough food for your military production when you need to. There is one special farm, which is the Indian plantation. That's very specific for the Indians. As you can see, it's larger than your typical farm, and obviously because it's larger, it has more space for more farmers, which is true. You can actually place 2 farmers on a single plantation, and once you upgrade them at the shrine, you can also put a 3rd farmer there. Now if we just take a look at the stats, plantations are much more expensive than the farms, 220 wood, which is a lot, but they have more health, which is nice, so they don't die too fast to enemy splash damage. Line of sight is the same, and yes, they are also in the infinite source of food. Other than that, yeah, once you get the plantation upgrade, like I said, there will be extra farmer spot for them, for the villagers. Then also the cost is gonna go down, and if I'm not mistaken, the HP goes up as well. But yeah, the most important is the cost and the extra farmers. So yeah, suddenly like you can have 3 farmers on a building that costs, I don't know, how much is it, like less than 200. Okay, like can you imagine, like you pay less than the price of 2 farms and you get actually space for 3 farmers. Yeah, plantations are very efficient, especially after you upgrade them. So yeah, you should definitely get them. Now, because they are larger, there is one nice thing, and if you compare the size to the TC, you'll realize that yeah, the one side is the same size as a TC side, so you can actually build a nice square by placing the plantations around the TC. While with farmers, you cannot get the precise square. Instead, you get like this mill shape. So yeah, plantations nicely placed around the TCs. That's a nice thing about them. Anyway, I don't think there's anything else needed to say. Remember to build them to get the infinite food source. Moving on, we're going to go for towers. Now, towers serve as, also I forgot to mention, farms have like plants growing on them. It's like the brown field with some plants growing on them. Cannot forget about those. But yeah, back to the towers, the guard towers actually. That's the full name, but yeah, I usually just call them towers. So these are like tall structures, and as you can see, they have like these moving, I don't know if I would say arrows or bolts, whatever, but yeah, let's say arrows, and they are like sticking from the windows or murder holes or whatever you want to call those. So yeah, tall structure with some arrows moving around. Now the main purpose of the tower is obviously static defense, so when you place them, they attack nearby enemy units. Now there is a disadvantage to towers: they have minimum range, so when the melee units reach them and start attacking them, usually towers will die because they cannot attack below them. The only exception are the Greek towers, but they need the murder holes tech at the academy to be able to attack enemies right near them. Anyway, you can see multiple versions of towers because they have multiple models, which depends on their upgrade, what they're currently at. But yeah, towers available in H2. Also forgot, farms are H2 and armories are H2. Everything else is still H1, so good thing to mention. So yeah, if we take a look at the stats, towers, I need to say they are quite expensive, okay? 100 wood, 150 stone, so 250 resources to build one tower. So yeah, it's quite expensive, but you get 1200 HP, which is nice, 25 DPS, that's definitely nice, 4 times bonus against ships, that's very important. When you build towers near the water, they will do a lot of damage to the ships, like 100 DPS just by default. Like, come on, that's a lot of damage. But remember, ships have very high pierce armor, so yeah, it's actually not 100, but 50 DPS. Okay, so careful with that. But yeah, when you get the towers, they definitely can counter the enemy arrow ships. There's that. Attack range of 30, which is very nice, and then also line of sight of 32, so pretty high line of sight, which is important because hey, you want to spot the target so you can start attacking it. So yeah, it's there to help your towers. As you can see, every civ gets one. Now it depends how many upgrades you get, that can increase the power of your towers, because for example Persians and Celts have only one upgrade for the towers, while the Greeks have 2, same as the Babylonians, the Indians, Egyptians, Norse, and Romans. Everyone just gets 2 upgrades. Only Persians and Celts are the unlucky ones. Now there exist like models for these towers with higher upgrades, because they actually could get those long time ago. Yeah, there would be like different tech trees, and so you could get like better towers as Persian or Celts, and those models still exist in the game. You can even see them in some specific quests. So yeah, those do exist. Anyway, I don't think there's anything else needed to say. You can also garrison units inside, that's important. Other than that, yeah, static defense attacks enemy units. Yeah, you should definitely try to build them if you have enough space for those, and if you are already getting limited by the population limit, then towers can be nice extra addition for some defense when you need some protection. And the population, yeah, is unfortunate for you because you're reaching the limit. So yeah, extra towers here and there can help you with the defense, or maybe even offense if you want to. Now there are a few extra towers. The alliances get their specific towers, so you have the Delian, the Farafar Oasis, and the Kartak towers that you can build those during the palace races. So they exist there. If we just take a look at the stats, yeah, basically standard tower, but different costs. That's actually very important to mention, but because they are part of those mini games, so I think it's quite reasonable that you see the different cost here. And then there's also the ice tower, which you will see during the winter event quests. Now, these actually differ because it depends how the towers are statted in those quests, but yeah, if we just take a quick look here, much higher DPS, okay, like 60 DPS by default, that's a lot of damage, okay? So these towers are dangerous and you just want to break them as soon as possible because otherwise, yeah, it's gonna hurt you. Anyway, I don't think there's anything else needed to say, so yeah, that's towers. Let's move on. Wonders. Let's go with wonders. Now, wonders, those are like super late game structures. You get access to them in H4. How do you recognize them? Well, every civ gets one, and they are like very specific visual. Like, can be shiny, they can be like this, but basically think about them as like this majestic structure, like big, majestic, and very civ thematic, okay? So for example, the Greek wonder is like Zeus sitting on his throne, holding his lightning bolt in hand. So there's that. As you can see, every civ gets one. Now, unfortunately, in PvE, you don't really get the value of a wonder out of it because you just build it and it exists. There is one exception, which is the Persians with their H4 advisor Bahram. So when you build a wonder, you'll get some buffs for your units, but that's like the only exception. Now, wonders still have some purpose, and that's in champion mode. They actually grant a passive buffs to your units and buildings when you build them, okay? But they're also quite expensive in champion mode, so careful with that. But when you build them, hey, powerful buffs for your units, anything that can help you win the quest is a nice thing. So you should try to get them. Anyway, if we just take a quick look, very expensive, as I said, 1000 wood, gold, and stone. Like, that's a lot of resources, but like I said, H4, it looks high, but it's not that high in the end game. 7500 health, so they last as long as possible, and then 20 line of sight. But yeah, usually you build them and they do nothing, okay, in PvE. But in champion mode, yeah, very useful. You should build them. And just remember, champion mode, the numbers can be different, okay? If I remember, the champion mode wonders cost like 1500 of each resource. I mean wood, gold, and stone. So yeah, slightly more expensive. But hey, the buffs are there. Anyway, I don't think there's anything else needed to say about the wonders. So let's move on to Fortress. Now, Fortress is like this, I would dare to describe as a huge tower. Much wider, much more, how should I say it? Yeah, let's just say big, really big tower, okay? With like, you can see like the fortresses are made of like multiple towers and then like the huge central structure. I guess that's gonna be the best description. And then you can see like the crossbow or ballista or whatever that is sticking out of it. Instead of just the arrows, you get like crossbows. I think that later towers also get like the crossbows there. But yeah, the main thing about the fortresses, they are very expensive. You get them in H3, and yeah, they can serve as a static defense as well, but most importantly, you can also train some units in there. Now, this depends on the civ, but typically you can train your Palintorons in H4, and Palintorons are very powerful units if you know how to use them. But yeah, every civ gets a Palintoron there, pretty much, well, most of them. And then yeah, there can be some other units trained as well. For example, the Indian fortress can also train the rams. And then the Celtic fortress, instead of Palintorons, actually trains stone throwers. And then you can also train the ram there as well. But yeah, that's the difference. If we just take a look, 300 wood and 400 stone, so very expensive, but you get 8500 HP, 83 DPS. Just remember, those projectiles can miss because they are not hitting the target directly. 4 times bonus against the ships, 40 maximum range, which by default is very huge. There's also the splash damage of 1, and then the line of sight of 44. Now this is, as I mentioned with the watch post, this is the highest line of sight you can get on building, and so fortresses can be used for huge line of sight. There's also the advisor, but I think it's not really necessary, but you can put like gear for line of sight on fortresses. It's possible, but usually I prefer like using the high HP and just being like this tanky building, soaking a lot of damage while the towers behind it will do the damage. But yeah, other than that, mainly used for the Palindrons. Now these fortresses that you can see here is actually what I was talking about, because we have slightly different fortresses as well. And that's the Egyptian and Norse fortresses. Now, if I just tell the purpose, the Norse is pretty much the same as the Celtic one. You get log thrower instead of stone thrower. You get log thrower that you can train at the fortress, and also you can train Farbuilder, which is ram-like unit. Anyway, if we just take a look at the stats, the difference is the cost. It's 400 wood and 300 stone. So the costs are swapped, but it's still a lot of resources. 7000 HP, so less HP. 50 DPS. I believe the Egyptian is the same. Yeah. So less DPS. Bonus against ships is there, but because of the lower DPS, yeah, it's worse. Attack range is also lower, only 36. Splash damage is there, and the line of sight is also slightly lower, only 40 instead of the 44. So yeah, overall these are weaker fortresses, but at the same time it's easier to get 400 wood than 300 stone, so that's the one thing. Now there is still one nice advantage over the other fortresses, and that is these two fortresses can be built much faster than the other fortresses. Typically, fortress takes 3 minutes to build with one villager. These two actually take only 2 minutes, so yeah, a lot faster than those. Now, I did mention Egyptian fortress. There is one difference, and the main thing about the Egyptian fortress, you cannot train siege units at the Egyptian fortress. No, the Egyptian fortress is actually being used to train elephant units, which is the main difference from the other fortresses. Usually you train siege. Egyptians train elephants. So a living siege, you could say. But other than that, yeah, it's just weaker fortress overall. Less health, less DPS, lower range, lower line of sight. So overall it's much weaker structure. And then we have like few special fortresses. One for the Etruscans, which, as we can see right here, is your typical fortress, so just like the Greek one, for example. And then there's the Badari fortress, which, as we can see, is slightly different, and this is very specific for Badari faction. And as you can see, the cost is slightly higher, but yeah, you don't really care about it because you're not building it no matter what, so cost is slightly higher. If somehow you get access to it, yeah, probably in some specific scenario. The health is higher, 8800 in comparison to the 8500. The DPS is 60s, which is weaker, yes. So it's something, the Badari one is like between the Greek fortress and the Egyptian fortress. That's how I describe it. The attack range is only 36, the line of sight is 40, so yeah, it's something between the Greek and Egyptian fortress. And there's that. I don't think there's anything else needed to say about the fortresses, so yeah. Let's move on. We have siege workshops. Now, only 5 civs get the siege workshops. 2 civs, or no, actually 3 civs get their siege units trained at the fortress, as I said. So as you can see, Greeks, Egyptians, Romans, Persians and Babylonians get their siege workshops. The rest, meaning the Celts, Norse and Indians train their siege at the fortress. But yeah, Siege Workshop I would say is a lot better option because it's much cheaper than a fortress, only 300 wood. Otherwise, same stats as the market, so I'll just reference the market from now on. And yeah, the main purpose of these is to train siege units. Now, usually you train the Palinterons at the fortress. There's only one exception, which is the Egyptian Siege Workshop is the place where you train the Palinteron instead. But because it's a lot faster to build a siege workshop and a lot cheaper, the Palinterons take much longer to produce, okay? Keep that in mind. Anyway, anything else that is not Palinteron, you can train at the siege workshop. So usually the ram units, and in case you play, let's say, Greeks, you can get your ballistas or catapults for Egyptian or onages for Romans. Now Persians have slightly different siege, which is the war wagon that deals pierce damage, but yeah, again, you train it at the siege workshop. And Romans also get access to Scorpios. Siege workshops are available in H3, so you can build them quite early. Other than that, yeah, there's nothing else needed to say. Used for siege units, that's basically what you need to know. Anyway, let's move on. And since we started with the siege workshop, we are getting closer to the end. So we have the military production here. So let's talk about the barracks. Now barracks, those are the H1 military productions you get, because usually you start in H1 with the barracks and you can train your spearmen there. And then later you get access to more advanced units. Anyway, barracks, how do you recognize them? Think about it like this structure that has like melee weapons around a shield, like, you know, there you have like two weapons, let's say two swords here crossed, and then there's like a shield above it. Norse is slightly different as the axes are not crossed, but hey, there's the shield and there are weapons around it. But yeah, usually two weapons and a shield that you can see on the building. Now, every civ gets their own specific barracks, and as you can see, there are also some other barracks for some other factions. So, for example, we have the Badari barracks, which I'll tell you right away has much less health, because if you take a look at the barracks, 200 wood, otherwise the same stats as markets. So that's all you need to know. So yeah, Badari barracks have much less health, only 1000. Then you have these bandit barracks, which again much lower health. Then you have the Etruscan barracks, which look exactly the same as your typical barracks. And then you have the Nubian barracks, which again have much higher health than your typical barracks, so 3000 health, so slightly more protected. The main reason you build barracks is you have, I dare to say, most of your infantry units being produced there. So yeah, you build barracks typically to train infantry units, but there might be some exceptions that you can train at the barracks as well. For example, the Egyptian barracks can train slingers, the ranged units. And then there is one exception. Romans, instead of barracks, get castellum. Now, on the first look, it looks just like your typical barracks. There is no difference on the first look, but once you get too deep, you will know that these castellums actually have few extra gear slots for bow and arrows. Then it can be also upgraded to, and I forgot the word, what is it? Is it Praetorium? No, that's this. Yeah, whatever it's called. When you get it, the castellum will change the visual and it will become garrisonable. So you can garrison some villagers in it, and then the castellum can attack enemy units that are too close to it. But this happens only if there are garrisoned units inside. Okay, the building will not attack on its own. You need units garrisoned inside to make it able to attack. Other than that, yeah, it's basically barracks, so nothing else needed to say about it. So yeah, that's gonna be everything about the barracks. So let's move down here. Here we have the docks. Docks is the only building that you can build on water and only on water, but you need to build it on a coast. Okay, it's on water, but you need to place it on the coast, I should say, rather than on water. But yeah, you use docks to train naval units, for example fishing boats, and then the docks serve as a drop site for those fishing boats. You can train merchant transports and then use them to trade between the docks. So yes, they can serve as market TC relation, but instead of that you have dock and a dock relation. Other than that, yeah, the military naval units can be trained there, so arrow ships, anti-ship ships, and then siege ships. So you can train those here. If I had to say, there are a few exceptions about the docks, but let's take a look at the stats. So docks cost 150 wood, otherwise the same stats. I'm just gonna start calling it as the barracks, except the line of sight is higher at 30, which makes sense. Hey, you can place it on water, but the watch posts, yeah, you cannot place watch posts on the water, so it makes sense that the docks have slightly higher line of sight here. Now there are a few exceptions about the docks, because there are two docks that cost 200 wood, and that's the Babylonian one and then the Roman one. Okay, all of them have 30, yeah, okay. And the main reason is, I dare to say, it's because of the arrow ships, because Romans and Babylonians train smaller arrow ships called Liburnian or Byreme, which take less population and they are cheaper overall. So the reason I dare to say is because you mostly of PvP, so you build a dock and you don't build a dock and rush the arrow ship super fast and put the other ships at disadvantage. No, but when you can afford like multiple ships, yes, the faster production of the Liburnians or Byremes is gonna be notable. So yeah, it's just so the two ships don't just, you know, gain full control over the water just super fast. Other than that, yeah, as I said, they can serve as a drop site for fishing boats. Not only that, you can drop off resources with your villagers as well. And I dare to say this includes also the elephant gatherer. Other than that, yeah, I don't think there is anything else needed to say about the docks. Just remember, you can find them on water, which is the unique aspect of this structure. And also, when you look at it, there's a lighthouse. So yeah, if you want to recognize it, it's on water and there's a lighthouse. That's all you need to know about the docks. So let's move on to archery ranges. Now, archery ranges are military buildings. Either to say stat-wise, it's the same as the barracks. Already, if we just take a look, same cost, same HP, PSR line of sight. Okay, so archery range is being used to train ranged units. Makes sense because it's archery range. And how do you recognize it? Well, usually you can see like targets with arrows. That's all you need to know about it. Now, as you can see, only 6 civs get the archery range. As I mentioned, Egyptians train their slingers at the barracks, so there is no real need for the archery range for the Egyptians, as they train the other ranged units in some other buildings. For example, the chariots, they train at the stables, which makes sense because, hey, they use horse there. But yeah, the other one are the Romans, which instead of the archery range use the auxiliary camp. Stat-wise is the same as the archery range. The main difference here is it uses different upgrades. Unlike the archery ranges have line of sight upgrades and then maximum range damage upgrade in Golden Age, while the auxiliary camp is using discounts with movement speed and damage on the final upgrade. So that's the one difference. The other difference is they also train their heavy cavalry unit, the Gallic horsemen here. So that's the difference. It's not only about the ranged units, there's also a cavalry unit, which makes it different, obviously, because if you had the archery range, you would train the foot archers there. So there's that. Anyway, I wanted to say something. I forgot something. It's getting late, god damn it. I need to finish this, but yeah. Yeah, I think I forgot it. Whatever. Just remember, auxiliary camp also has the targets and the arrows, and as you can see, there's also a horse, so it's something between the archer range and stables. Okay, that's what I'm gonna mention. Man, I swear I forgot something. Yeah, archer ranges, you cannot train the mounted archers nor the chariots. No, you train the foot archers and skirmishers and such. Not using horses there. I don't have anything else to say, maybe except archer ranges are available in H2, and there's that. Okay, let's keep it short. Moving on, stables. I already mentioned the auxiliary camp. Auxiliary camp is like the mixture of the archer range and stables. Now the stables, as you can see, Romans get the auxiliary camp, and not only that, you can also train Ekes at the Castellum for the Romans, so Romans have no need for the stables. But stables, if we just take a look at the stats, it's the same as the barracks and archery ranges, only they cost more wood. As you can see, 250 wood for each stable, even the Celtic one. Yes, so there's that. How do you recognize them? Usually there is some mountable unit, so you can see like a horse, or in case of Egyptians, the camel, and then there's also like the big horseshoe somewhere on the building, so you can see like Greek ones has it right there. Egyptian has this nice golden horseshoe, and then you can see the other sieves similar, only Persians have it silver. Why do Greeks have it bronze? Or yeah, bronze. Why? Is it copper? Whatever. Why Greeks have like the bronze? I don't get it. I mean, otherwise you get silver or gold, but only Greeks have bronze. That's so unfair. No, I demand a fix for this. Come on, that's a buck. That's supposed to be platinum. Come on. Whatever. Anyway, yeah, you use them to train mounted units, so cavalry units in general, but you can also train some chariots or mounted archers. For example, Egyptians have the chariots. The Indians have the chariots as well, but the Persians and Babylonians, well, Persians have the mounted archers, Babylonians have mounted archers and chariots as well. And then Celts have the carpentops, which basically a chariot with javelin user. Now there is one exception I need to mention, and that's the Celtic stable. Most of the stables you get access to in H2. Only the Celtic stables you get access to in H3. That's the only difference about the Celtic stables, which makes it special. And why? Because they don't get access to cavalry units until H3. That's why. So why would you need a building in H2 when you cannot really use it? That's the whole point. And otherwise, yeah, I don't think I have to mention anything else here. So let's move on. I need to mention few special military production buildings. That's the Immortal Camp for the Persians. You can see that's like the tower and then like tents around it. You can see like the melee weapons, or is it like, yeah, whatever. Immortal Camp is like the tower, and then with few tents on the side, and then at the front you can see a camp with some targets with arrows in them. Or are there? No. Yeah, basically targets. So tower and then some targets, Persian specific building. Yeah, Immortal Camp. What do you use it for? Training immortals. That's the only reason. Okay. Then we have the Indian Mahout Camp. This one is basically like, I dare to say like some form of heavier stable. So if we just take a look at it, and yeah, the Immortal Camp, same as Barracks. Okay. Mahout Camp costs slightly more. So it's 300 wood instead of 250 like your typical stable. Other than that, yeah, same stats. How do you recognize it? Well, there is an elephant you can see there. So you could say, hey, it's like stables with a mountable unit, only that, not unit, animal is elephant. And then also you can see like these horns right there. So Mahout Camp, yes, you use it to train elephant units. So more elephants, elephant archers, and the juggernauts. That's all there is to it. And then the Romans have their very specific one, the Praetorium, which, if we just take a look at it, 200 wood, otherwise, yeah, so same stats as the barracks. The main purpose of this building is Romans train their officer units there. So decurions, centurions, aquilifers, and the primus pilus. So that's where you train the officer units, and that's the main purpose of this building. I don't think there's anything else needed to say, except it's a tent, okay? It's a tent. And then you have like these, is it like banners or whatever? Whatever. And then like some pieces of armor and shields around it. That's all you need to know. Okay, that was the last specific military production building. So let's move on. Let's go with temples. Okay, so we have few temples. So we have the Greek temples, the Roman temples, Templum I should say, then the Norse Great Hall, and then the Sacred Grove. Now in this case it's hard to tell like how to recognize the structures, but I dare to say just think about it like something that would be like a sacred place, I guess, is the best description. Otherwise I have no idea how I would describe these buildings to you. But yeah, think about it as a sacred building dedicated to some god or whatever. Think about it this way. So yeah, the main purpose of these structures is to train priests. Only the Great Hall, the North Great Hall, you can train the chief there as well, and then the Sacred Grove you can train the sacred deers as well. But hey, usually when you do so, you use them for the rites for your augurs, so yeah, it's still part of the priest. Anyway, I don't think there's anything else needed to say. If we just take a look at the cost, it's the same as barracks, which if I'm not mistaken is the same. Typically temples are available in H3, the Sacred Grove is actually available on H sooner, and it's also cheaper, so there would be like difference from these, but I just did not want to split it like too much. But yeah, that's gonna be it about the temples. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. There are also 3 specific for the Alliance quests. So again, the Delian, the Far Oasis, and the Kartak, which still kept the old cost of 300 wood, which is nice. Temples used to be more expensive. But yeah, these kept the old costs. But that's gonna be the only difference here for these. Okay. Then there are also Egyptians. Now Egyptians get 3 temples, and the main reason for these temples is Egyptians use them actually to age up. Okay, so when you're in H1 you can build the Temple of Phra. When you build it, you actually age up. So it's hard to tell whether I would say, hey, the Temple of Ra is actually H2 structure or H1 structure. It's hard because when you finish it, you're H2. So that's hard to tell. But yeah, because they are used to age up, these buildings are also much more expensive. So yeah, you can see Temple of Ra is 200 food and wood. So yeah, that's for aging up. And then you get the Priest of Set, or so Temple of Set, which costs the same as the Silver Age, and Temple of Ta for the Golden Age. And obviously it takes quite a long while to build those. Anyway, if we just take a look at the stats, usually they just have much higher HP than barracks. Much higher, so you have the 3000 for Temple of Ra, 4500 for the Temple of Set, and then 4500 for the Temple of Ta. And yeah, you just know it's Egyptian structure, okay? So you can see like the paintings, the Egyptian paintings, and some hieroglyphs or hieroglyphs or whatever you pronounce it. So there's that. Anyway, that would be like the main temples. Now I'm gonna make a small detour, which is gonna be the tech buildings, and there's gonna be only two, which is the Greek Academy and the Celtic Bard Hall. Now these, if we just take a look at the stats quickly, same as the barracks. The main purpose of these structures is to research upgrades for your units, buildings, and such. So the Celtic Bard Hall is where you research upgrades for your infantry. The Academy is, hey, a lot of different techs for you as Greeks. Usually defensive techs like the murder halls, extra HP for buildings, and then extra damage against navy buildings for your towers and ranged units. So there's that. Yeah, the main reason you basically get upgrades, same as the armor, the main reason you get upgrades. Now that was a small detour, and let's go back to these temples, which is the Forum, the Monastery for the Indians, and the Persian War Academy. Now, why I did make the detour? Because these structures, while they do serve as a temple for the Siths, at the same time they are tech buildings as well. So when you take a look at the monastery, this one is actually available in H2, and as you can see, it has the same cost and stats as the barracks. Same goes for the War Academy and the Forum. So yeah, the same stats. The main thing is you get these structures in H2 already, so you get them 1 H sooner than your typical temple. In case of the Academy, it's also H2, the Bard Hall is H3. But yeah, you get these in H2, usually for some techs, and then once you age up, you get access to more techs, and then also to the priests. So yeah, the Indian Guru is H3, the Magus is H3, the Clinicus is H3, but yeah, you get these buildings in H2 already. As I said, works as a temple and tech building at the same time. So there's that, and then there's the ziggurat, which again is just like these three buildings. So ziggurats serve the same purpose as a temple and a tech building, but at the same time it works just like the Egyptian temple. You need ziggurat to age up to Bronze Age. So once you finish it, you're in H2. And then it again serves as a tech building. Now, the difference between the Babylonian ziggurat and the Egyptian temples is you need to build it only to reach H2. After that, you need to research the H tags, the H3, H4 at the ziggurat. So instead of the tag being at the town center, you have it at the ziggurat. That's the difference. But yeah, otherwise in H3 you get access to priest, and other than that, you have a lot of tech upgrades here. Stat-wise, it's the same as the Temple of Ra. So same cost, same health, that. One interesting thing about it, as you age up, the visual of the ziggurat will also change on the age up. So yeah, you can recognize when it gets silver age and golden age as it gets higher, and the material of the lion here on top is getting changed. Okay, I don't think that there's anything needed to say about the tech buildings or temples, yeah, because again, it looks like this is more like a place for like educated people, I guess. Anyway, moving on, we have only a few buildings left, which are gonna be like very specific ones. First, the Babylonian Garden. This one is specifically for Babylonians. When you build it, the garden will start trickling in some food, which is nice. It starts at 0.5, then you get upgrade, which increases it to 1 per second, and then you can also have Gerda that increases it by another 1 unit per second, so 2 units per second if you have the advisor. Anyway, when you build these, the cost of the next one is actually gonna high. So you might see like 50-50 here, but when you wanna build the next one, it will cost you 60-60, and then it will cost you 70-70, and then even more, and then more. Okay, there's a limit of how many gardens you can have, and that's up to 12 gardens. And this depends on which age you're currently in. So in Bronze Age, you get 4 gardens, Silver Age another 4, Golden Age another 4. That's that. Not only that, you get the extra food income, but also gardens improve the train and research times in all of your buildings. Okay, so when you want to age up, Babylonians can do it faster because of the gardens. When you want to train your army real fast, Babylonians can do it because of the gardens again. So the gardens are really nice boost for your Babylonian, not only economically but also for faster unit production as well, and faster upgrades as well. And I don't think there's anything else needed to say, except when you age up, the visual of the garden also changes, just like with the ziggurat. And yeah, it looks like a garden, okay? The Babylonian one. Anyway, another building, Milarium. I already mentioned this at the beginning of the video. This building can be built only by engineer, so Romans only. Basically, this is like, yeah, I'd like to say a column with an eagle on top of it. I guess it's an eagle. And then it's also a little bit bright, like it's shiny. As you age up, the visual of the Milarium also changes, and the main thing about the Milarium is, hey, you build it, and then if you select it, you can see the circle right here. So every unit you have inside that circle will have increased movement speed, except the villager units and eco units, only military units. Now these are pretty cheap, but hey, you don't want to spend like too much wood early, so yeah, you just keep it for later, for mid game to late game. Anyway, yeah, 250 HP, 0.8 pierce armor, 26 line of sight. But yeah, the main purpose of this building is to buff your units to make them move faster. Also the gardens, I forgot the stats, so 500 HP, 20 line of sight. Yeah, there's that. Anyway, another special building, this is the Celtic gold mine. Now the one special thing about it is you can build it only over a gold deposit. So you build it over a gold deposit, then you garrison villagers inside, and the villagers will gather the gold from the gold deposit. And the nice thing is that as they are garrisoned, they will immediately drop off the resources. So it's like, hey, you you gather like one unit, immediately drop off, another unit, immediately drop off. Not only that, the gold mine also grants extra conservation on the gold deposit, so you can get even more gold from the deposit. Now, how much does it cost? It's only 100 wood, so very important. For 100 wood, you can have like 1500 extra gold from a 3000 gold deposit. So yeah, try to use gold mines as much as you can if you're going for the villager gold mining. But yeah, usually when you get the caravans, it's no longer necessary. But hey, if you need the gold, it can help. And the villagers will be nicely protected. 2000 health, that's good amount of HP. For 100 wood, really good. Then also the 20 line of sight, and you can also see the current situation of the current state of the gold deposit. As you can see, the 3000 out of 3000 gold. Yeah, that's the state of the gold deposit. Yeah, try to use the gold mine as much as you can. And how do you recognize it? Well, there is a gold deposit inside of it, and then a cart with a gold on it. So that's gonna be it. Anyway, we're moving on to the final building, which is the Indian shrine. And I was thinking, where do I put this? Okay, the shrine, basically giant golden cow statue with some, like, I guess, offerings being placed there, some fruits. Now, the main purpose of this structure is you train the sacred cows and use it as a passive gold income. So the shrine itself is already generating gold, but when you put extra herdables there, namely the sacred cows, because that's where you get the most of the gold, that means hey, you're using it for the passive gold income, and it can be a lot of gold. Now there is a limit to how many shrines you can have, so you get only 3. Once you research an upgrade at the shrine, you can get 1 extra. So there's that. Other than that, you can use it to train the monkeys as well. Other than that, yeah, it's also like a tech building. As I said, you can upgrade to get more shrines and more sacred cows. You can use it to upgrade the monkeys, and then at the same time you get the upgrade for the plantation here as well. So I was thinking, where do I put it? I wanted to put it over here with those special buildings, but then I thought, yeah, it's something special, but also it's a tech building. Yeah, it's very specific. Anyway, stat wise, 150 wood cost for 1000 HP, 1 passive gold income. And also, why is there no pierce armor? Is it because of the scenario creation? I need to check that. God damn it. I need to take a look at the shrine. Maybe it's the wrong shrine, I don't know. But why is there no pierce armor? That's weird. If you're wondering, the infinite gold, that's for the sacred cows, okay? Because the sacred cows are gathering gold from the shrine. That's how it works. And just so you know, when you build a shrine, make sure to command your villagers to do something else afterwards, because otherwise they can go and start gathering gold from a nearby gold deposit when you finish the shrine. It's a side effect of the sacred cows, I believe. But yeah, other than that, I don't think there's anything else needed to say. And with that, yeah, one more thing I forgot to mention: wonders. On the minimap, there is a star. Okay, that means that's a wonder. And the gold mine you can see as a I dare to say, like, gold icon. You know, when you select it, you can see gold icon. You deselect it, and yeah, there's that. I hope I didn't forget anything. I tried to mention everything as much as I could, as I remember, but yeah, it's gonna be slightly mess. As you can see, a lot of buildings. And not to mention, they also change the visuals over time as you get more upgrades and age up, and Goddamn. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, please press the like button. If you want to see more videos like this, well, this one is actually the final one, but I might make one more as a bonus. I'll see, but yeah, I'll take a break a little bit and next week maybe. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this. If you did, press the like button. If you want to see more, subscribe to the channel. Make sure to leave a comment, especially if I did forget about something. Doesn't need to be like, hey, I forgot like this unit is constructing buildings as well. No, but I mean like specifically for the buildings. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. This was Psychosaurus. I'll see you next time. Bye.